Hey guys, welcome to the $100 challenge.
Aloha!
We are so excited to be a part of this year. Check out the rest of the incredible flips in this playlist. So the goal is that each furniture flipper spends less than $100 completely renovating a piece of furniture. Let's see if we can do this, Mom.
It's gonna be a challenge for sure. Okay, you guys. So our piece is particle board, which we don't really like, but guess what? It was free.
And it's been sitting in my garage for almost a year.
I think we can give it new life. Let's do it.
Absolutely. We start every furniture flip with a good clean. Today we're using Dirtex TSP Alternative, and this is just to get that grease and grime off so that we can really start getting to work.
It works like a charm.
Because there's no raw wood we're trying to get down to, we're just going to give this a scuff sand with a 180 grit, and the point of that is just to scuff up the finish so that the paint will adhere nicely. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of water damage on top, so we're going to have to address that raw particle board we're getting down to.
Yeah, it's a little bubbly, so we had to smooth out the bubbleliciousness.
Bubblicious, that's like our new word this year. We use it a lot.
Okay, now we have raw particle board. And if we try to paint it just like that, it would soak up the paint and bubble again. So we're just taking some shellac sealer. Boy, easy for me to say, right? We're gonna take that and seal it up so the paint won't soak in.
This dresser is a very plain, boring, simple design.
We need to do something with it.
We need to spice it up, and I love adding texture.
I do too.
One thing that we both have done in different renovations we've done in our homes and RVs is use shims to create texture by overlapping them in different patterns. So we've been dying to do this on a dresser. I'm excited to finally do this because I think it's going to work perfect with the shape of this dresser. And I think the dresser can bear the weight of all this extra wood.
It's going to be over the top, a little crazy. So what are shims, you might be asking? Well, they're kind of like little wedges that builders use when they're trying to make things level.
Think a really cheap wood.
Yeah, they're cheap wood. They come in strips. They're about 12 inches long. And they're a wedge, very thin on one end and thick on the other. We ended up using about 150 of these shims to cover all 4 drawers.
And man, I feel like you were just working on shims for days between sanding them and staining them.
I think I was, but just for an hour or 2 at a time.
Yeah, so it goes pretty fast.
It does.
We found that it definitely sped up the process to roll on with a foam roller the stain you're using. But what we didn't consider was these cheap pieces of wood just soak in the moisture.
They really did.
So we ended up using half a quart of our stain.
About a pint.
Right, but a half of a huge container of stain just on these shims. So looking back, if we were to do it over again, we would just do a paint wash that's mostly made of water to save more money.
Yeah, and this color of stain, what is it called?
This is by Varathane. It's called Hazelwood. A nice light gray, but still warm tone. So now we're on to the exciting part of this project, installing these shims on the drawers.
And it was really fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, once we kind of figured out our rhythm and our pattern for this. So we started in the center, laid them out one at a time, overlapped. So we had about like 4 to 5 inches showing of the top of the wedge. Just kept going, and as we attached them, we used wood glue and then the brad nailer. And everywhere we nailed, we covered up with a new piece just so you wouldn't see those little holes at all. And yeah, it was a slow process at first, but we really sped up with each drawer.
Yeah, I think the nail just kind of served to hold it in place while the wood glue dried.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we forgot to mention is that every other row points a different direction. In other words, we started off on the first row with all the thick edges going one direction. The next row, we laid them completely in the opposite direction.
So it really kind of gives a basket weave effect.
Yeah, that's what makes it look really cool. We get a lot of questions about those scarves that we wear around our necks.
They're definitely not for decoration.
I know, aren't they cute? But really, those aren't scarves at all. They're cooling towels. So we get those wet, and we have to re-wet them about every hour or so, but they just work wonders in our Phoenix summer heat.
Absolutely. I literally a lifesaver. Well, maybe not literally. So as we were adding these, we wanted to make sure to cut down the edges, and I just used my chop saw to do that, just so we had nice, clean, flush sides. But we left the top and the bottom hang over, thinking we could just jigsaw at the end with a nice, clean cut.
Okay, big mistake.
Big mistake. There are better methods.
Well, if we had thought through this process a little bit, we would not have tried to use a jigsaw. I mean, there was no place that we could hook up a guide or anything. And so Dani was just trying to cut a straight line by hand.
I don't know why I thought I'd be able to do that, but it was virtually impossible. So it got a little wavy. I had regrets.
And I had to go back and sand over it, try to make it straight. Straight edge.
In the end, it was okay, but there are better ways. So for the other drawers, rather than doing it all over again, we decided to peel off the top and bottom layers of the shims and put those through the table saw so that we get one nice clean cut, because this jigsaw business was for the birds.
Yeah, that worked perfect. Turned out nice.
To keep this hardware simple with this very unique textured look, we just went with 10-inch long black handle pulls and
very sexy.
Oh, I was not expecting you to say that. Wow, okay. Yes, they are very cool looking, Mom. The tricky part about this hardware is how to install it to make sure it's level, because the two ends are on different parts of different wedges. So one end's going to be a little taller than the other. So we ended up needing to use a countersink drill bit just so that they could both sit flush. And it worked great. It just took a little extra time.
For the wood fronts, we needed to seal them, so we just used some Watco wipe-on poly. And the fastest way that we could think to do that is just take an old ratty chip brush and just brush it on.
For this piece, we wanted to experiment with the Rethunk Junk. We got this great package from Revive It Decor out in Ohio. She's a stockist for them. Rethunk Junk has a 3-part system. You start with their cleaner, which they call the prep, and that just really preps the surface for this resin paint. So this is not a mineral paint that we're going to use. It's our first time using a resin paint, which we're really excited to try. So Mom's just wiping on the prep, and we are going to start spraying this down soon. to use this resin paint in a sprayer, you just need to add a little bit of water just to make it a little thinner consistency. But we ran into some challenges as we were spraying.
Oh my gosh, what was 115 degrees that day? I
think so. And our mineral paints usually do just fine, but this resin paint kind of started getting thick and tacky because of the heat. And so it wasn't spraying well. So we had to keep putting it in a bucket of ice water, take it inside so that it could cool down between sections.
It was crazy.
It was such a learning curve anyways. The paint itself though is really cool. I know Jim and Cindy over at Furniture Warriors use this paint a lot because it's so durable. You can use it on indoor and outdoor furniture. I mean, it dries like a solid rock. It's really cool. So if you want to get some, we'll leave the link below to Revive It Decor's boutique where you can try some of this. And I'm excited to use it again when the weather cools down.
Yes.
We just have one last thing to do, and that is to clean up the edges of these laminate drawers because we want the edges to match the black resin paint on the dresser body. So we're just gonna touch it up, add a little bit of that Rethunk Junk paint in Midnight, and now we're ready to roll. Well, in the spirit of transparency for this $100 challenge, our grand total was $90. We somehow kept it under 100, and I think that's because we got our furniture for free. But man, adding everything else up really adds up.
It really does. But a lot of those things, like the tape measure, we had that.
Right, and you reuse those products. So I'd be curious to know what everybody's consumable amounts were, really.
Right.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you learned something new with this shim technique. Make sure to go check out those other videos in this $100 playlist. You guys rock. Aloha!